Hello, welcome back to Koi Boy Games. Today we're going to be doing a new little series. I call it Soda and Sit Down. So, first off, I'm going to review interesting soda as the gimmick of all this. So today we have Hank's Gourmet Black Cherry Soda. I sourced these ones from Rocket Fizz. It's a pretty well-known chain by now, but the one I went to was in St. Charles, which is outside of Chicago, where I'm from. So today we're going to be not only reviewing the soda, we're going to be talking about some other topics that just come up on mine, a little story time, if that may be what it is. But first, let's crack into this soda here. Ooh. It's definitely got a nice little. I like the fizziness already. All right. Well, it's very. The cherry is very strong to start out. If I had to say, the flavor's very. Or it's very watery though, which I don't really appreciate. Maybe if I give it more time to sit, it will actually kind of, I don't know, cultivate into something better. We'll see. But one of the topics I want to talk about today is religion. Now, for most of you who know, I like to stay away from controversial topics typically. Especially if you've ever seen any of my videos with any of the other guys when we started the podcast, we always tried to keep things pretty neutral as far as that is. But this is going to be a little interesting. So just so you guys know where I'm coming from, okay? So I was born and raised Catholic. Still am for the most part. But I do also go to Episcopal churches as well. Very similar style. Just a little different, a little less big of a church kind of thing. But the thing I want to talk about today is mega churches. And this is not meant to criticize. I shouldn't say criticize. It is a criticism. It's not meant to offend anyone who goes to a mega church or participates in a non-traditional church service. This is more just to highlight some of the pros and cons of it, I guess. I just want to make that clear. I don't want anyone to think what they're doing is wrong or anything just by this video. That is not the intention here. But what I do want to talk about is an interesting experience I had. And now this is just an experience. Don't use it as scientific data. But personally, once again, that's personally, don't use that as scientific data. Or anything to draw assumptions on, or anything like that, anything of that matter. But this is just something that I kind of struggle with, seeing that there is this divide in Christianity. But I guess it will just make more sense when I go into it. So I'm gonna start off. Just with a little story. I'm not gonna say the name of this church, or the name of the place I work. I will be using very brief terms just for the confidentiality of it all. So the store I work, one of the stores I work is a grocery store, pretty standard grocery store. So I was doing a sanitation shift because, whole COVID, got to keep things clean, got to keep customers safe. provide that service. So I was doing that, right? And I'm just cleaning through the aisles, cleaning the shelves, cleaning all the touch points, and this man comes up to me, and it's a strange experience. And first off, he asked out of nowhere. He's like, "How are you doing?" So that's pretty normal, you know. I'm just like, "Yeah, I'm doing all right, sir. How about you?" And then he asks, "Are you a church-going man?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I go to," and then I gave the name of the Catholic church I go to. And he kind of was let down from there, I guess you could say. And from there, he started to talk about, it was really weird, because then he's like, "Oh, okay." He didn't reveal till the end what church he goes to, and I'm not going to disclose that kind of thing. So essentially what he said was, he's like, "Oh, okay." Then he's like, we got to talking, and he's like, "All right, well, how do you think you get into heaven?" And he's like, I'm like, "Well, you know, you do what the Bible says, basically. You follow the 10 Commandments at their most base form, and you just try to be a good person, try to have a spiritual, you know, life with Christ, you know, with God, you know. In the Christian religion, that's kind of the goal, in a way. And that's simply it. And he's like, "Well, you know, that's not it." And I'm like, okay, from this moment, like, I was like, all right, this is gonna be strange. I'm like, I'm gonna entertain this guy, but this is gonna be hella strange. Let me take a drink real quick. All right. And where was I? Yeah. So this is gonna be hella strange. And he's like, "Well, you see, that's in the Old Testament, and the New Testament just says, you know, like, if you believe in Jesus, you're there." Like, which, yes, it does. There are parts that do say that. Now, the problem I started to take to this was then he went really fire and brimstone. He was like, you know, "Are you sure your family's getting to heaven?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm pretty confident in that." Like, "Oh, okay, what's your point here?" You know, my guy, like, only God knows that shit. Okay, like, that's it. That's only it. You know, that's all it's ever gonna be. Only he knows who's doing good, who's doing bad. There isn't a set judge system. Not even the church knows that, okay? Like, no church is going to be able to tell you, "Hey, you're going to heaven, or you're going to hell, or somewhere else," you know? Like, no church, no human can tell you that. That's kind of a thing between you and God, you know? That's a thing you do. And see, he's like, "Well, I don't want to be here when the apocalypse times comes, and, you know, the devil's children are ruling the world." And he's like, "God's only going to take a few people to heaven with him," and, like, all this stuff. And I'm just like, "Oh, okay, well, I took, you know, a little pamphlet he had just to, you know, be friendly, I guess." So yeah, I did that. Needless to say, too, this is entirely illegal. You cannot push on a public property, or, well, I shouldn't say a public property, a private property. You cannot push any kind of solicitation, whether that be for another business or a religion or any kind of service that is not with the express intent of that said store or other private area, and sometimes public area. So what he was doing was, in a sense, illegal. So I did report it to my manager, and it's like, you know, because it's not lawful, I guess you could say. And I did this too because he started going after other customers in a way. And they were saying about the same thing I did. They're like, yeah, and they were like, overheard, they were like Baptist or something. I don't remember the exact denomination. But it was something different than Catholic. I'll let you know on that. And it might have been Lutheran. It was something. But they're like, well, yeah, you just follow the exact same thing I said. Follow the 10 Commandments, try to be a good person, have a relationship with God, follow the unspoken 11th commandment that no one goes over, the one that Jesus delivered himself. Basically, treat others how you want to be treated. Yeah, that's one we often forget, but that pretty much was saying the same thing, and the guy goes off again. And so I'm not going to reveal, although it says on the back, I'm going to try my best not to reveal it, what church this is, because I don't want anyone targeting them. However, I will say this is a rather large, and I have been to it before, a rather large mega, like smaller mega church in my area. I'll just leave it at that. And I don't know if this guy was supposed to go places, if they told him directly how to do this. Because I know some churches will do that, and I don't have a problem with that. If that's, what you believe, that you should get more people involved, so be it, But as long as people are doing it on their own fruition, that is. And I just want to go through some of this briefly and kind of point out what I think is a little, now this is just me, a little different from how I was taught, essentially. So, alright, so God created us to enjoy a personal relationship with him and a purposeful life. And then it shows some scripture. Totally cool. Totally good from that point on. Alright, so sin separates us from God. That's the next thing. Alright, and it gives these fun little graphics on here. I'll show you one. There we go. So sin separates us from God. And sin leads to death. Okay. Like, I get this, but the one thing that it looks like it's trying to push here is, although sin is a barrier, it doesn't ever mean... This is an all too common thing, and this was something I had to experience on my own, because you'll hear different church teachings, but I'm going to tell you right now that whoever says that if you do one sin, whatever that sin may be defined as, no matter how bad or less bad that is, however you want to quantify it, you're never, unless you are in hell itself, you are never going to lose full contact with God. Because, I mean, you look at this, like, you look at, the story about the two guys praying in the temple, and one's like, I'm so glad I'm not like that other guy over there, and God's like, yo, like, stop being, an arrogant butt about it. And then the other guy who's like, yeah, I did all this horrible shit, but, like, I'm sorry for it. Like, the factor that God was listening to him over the other dude, like, it kind of just goes to show. I think that was one problem that I kind of had with this take on it, that no matter what you do, and especially in a system, because I kind of know their system. See, in Catholicism, there's a very there's a couple ways, but for more major sins, typically the ritualistic way to get forgiven is to go to confession. That, like, helps get through it. and or reconciliation is the proper term. Now this, it doesn't even, it says that sin separates it, but it doesn't really explain entirely how it's forgiven or how that works, which is a strange kind of system to be dealing with. Now, one thing it shows here that I really had a issue with is this right here. If you don't see what this pretty much is, this is essentially saying that people are trying to get to God by basically doing good things, living a moral life, and going to church. But the sin separating. This is what I had a problem with. Now, let's say you're doing some bad shit, whatever that is. Like, you know, you're I don't know what I should use. You're just doing something bad. You know, like you're doing something you shouldn't be doing. You know, maybe you're shoplifting or some shit. Like let's say that. Something you shouldn't be doing. And people try to skirt around it. Now, they're like basically saying that if you try to make yourself a better person and not shoplift and you do other good things, now if you're doing good things, you're eventually going to learn maybe there's an error to your ways. That's just how things work. Moral life, that goes into it. So basically what this is saying is if I try to strive for better, then I'm not gonna make it because there's something in the way that doesn't have any resolution. And then, of course, going to church, that's just kind of a foundation of religion thing. If you're in it, you're in it. If you're not, you're not. Like, some people won't get that. That's totally fine. But I just kind of find it weird that it's saying that by doing good, you can't get closer to God. And I think a lot of people, like a lot of my personal stuff, hasn't necessarily been through prayer or church ritual. It's been through actually doing stuff and working with people and figuring things out, that you really see God in everyday life. Then it says, you know, but Jesus bridges this gap. So, I guess my whole point with this is why... Yes, he does. Like, that is a foundational thing, but that doesn't mean good deeds, a moral life, and going to church, which is something that's associated with Christianity, that's associated with Jesus, isn't gonna help you accomplish that same goal. Like, you'll get there, you know, and I think that was just weird. And see, I don't know if it's the Catholic side on me taken over here, but for those of you who don't know, we look at God in a way that's a little different than others. We have something called the Holy Trinity. Now that is the Father, which is the traditional Abrahamic God, the Son, which is Jesus, and the Holy Spirit, which is essentially more just like a spirit of peace that dwells within, like everyone just kind of influences things. Now, I'd like to point out a lot of people think this is separate, but it's not. It's like, and it's really hard to quantify, and that's why it's called one of the mysteries of the church, because it is different. Like, Jesus is God, the Holy Spirit is God, and, you know, the traditional Abrahamic God is God. But they're kind of one person at the same time. It's three persons, one body. It's this mystery. There's no way to quantify it. And a lot of people are like, oh, so you believe in like many gods, you're polytheistic. Well, no. It's a monotheistic thing. So I think not taking that into consideration is a difference. And it especially kind of, the thing that bothers me is I think a lot of people don't really think about who Jesus was. Like, he was kind of a badass, you know, like, he literally fought demons out of people. He literally, like, died on a cross to, like, stop sins and stuff. But a lot of people turn him into this kind of puritanical thing. Like, no, he was for the people committing sins. He wasn't there to, you know, he was there to save everyone. But, you know, that was his primarily thing, to give people rest and reassurance. And I don't think a lot of people follow through with that. And I think almost making Jesus into a corporatized name that is just the answer for everything without putting backing behind it really just kind of messes with the ways of things, you know. I think it's better to learn about God and why, rather than to just have this Jesus solves everything. Because would you rather, like, for people who aren't Christian, would you rather someone just say, like, come up to you and be like, well, Jesus solves everything and it'll be okay? Or would you rather someone explain why and how this may help you, or something like that? You know, there's a difference. Or it doesn't even have to be that way. Just this person knows stuff and then they help you. It doesn't even need to bring, you know, Jesus into the picture right away. If they ask later, that's cool. Where I think, like, this whole thing to me just seemed forcing it and forcing it. And what are people going to want to do if you keep forcing and forcing and forcing something? They're not going to want to join you. They're in fact going to want to do the opposite, probably, because you're just pushing. And especially when you say they're wrong on things and you start throwing stuff like they're going to go to hell because they have a slightly different belief system. That's problematic. Let's turn to the next page here. So the next part is just kind of where are you, you know, in your relationship with God, which is pretty cool. But one problem I do take with these kind of mega churches, you can call them, it's actually pretty good as it gets going, is they seem to lack the ritualistic purposes and intent that church was supposed to have. Now, you look at even like Lutherans, they're pretty modernized, most of their churches, but they still take on rituals. They still do things. A lot of times when I go to a more like mega church, a more big church, it's in a gymnasium and it's watching people just play a rock concert. Like, that's all it is. And it's nice, you know, I'm not saying that's not the way. Don't get that. If your church does that and you love the shit out of it, like, do it, you know. But I tried it for a while, like, because there was a church up by my college that did that. And frankly, I can get into this in another episode, but the brand of Catholicism up there was not Catholic. Let's just say that. It was an entirely different beast. Okay. And I'll get into that in another episode where there's kind of a split between Catholicism of a more modern sense and a traditionalist kind of revival of that, which is causing a lot of problems in some areas. But I just want to kind of think, or, show in a way, I don't know how to put this. It just seemed really like, I don't know how to put it, but it just seems kind of different in a way, and it's not necessarily a bad different, but I'm used to there being more order to things, I guess. And when you look at things like Catholicism and even Lutheran, very similar. They just split for reasons. You can look up a whole nother history video on that. Catholicism wasn't the wrong there. I'll admit to that. They definitely were, but times have changed. We move on. And even so, even in Episcopal, there's very orders to things. There's things that date back to the more Jewish tradition of Christianity. It has ritual and reason. Where I feel you don't get that from just like a rock concert about God. I don't see that. Like, there's other feelings that invokes that are great, but I don't see the religion. I see something corporatized. I see something that's just gonna pull in a bunch of people for strict entertainment, rather than finding a deeper meaning, exploring the religion of it, in a sense. And I guess that's what kind of bothers me. But that's just me, like I said. If it works for you, great. But I don't think any church should ever say, this is the only way. And I felt like in this situation, that's what they were doing. And there's just, I've been to that one. It's not a gymnasium. It's more like a movie theater, and it's neat. But it just feels corporatized, and that's what I have a problem with. The amount of money they draw in, the amount of, amenities, like, yeah, it fosters community, but, like, they have a huge video game room in there. It's like, are you there for Jesus, or are you there for the video games? They have a huge, like, Chuck E. Cheese style playroom for the kids, and it's big. Like, it is big. Are the kids there for Jesus, or are they there for the playroom? And then it's like, even they have a Starbucks in there. It's like, are they there for the Starbucks, or are they there for God? That's the question. And that's kind of what I want to leave off on this. And I'm not saying churches should be incredibly boring and not spice it up. I'm just saying that I think, in a way, especially Christianity, and this is why I think a lot of people are turning away from it, because it's not become so much the rebellious kind of, people being persecuted thing. It's still going on, but like, especially in America, it's not that anymore. It's not what it was meant to be about. It's not about the love kind of stuff. It's not about, accepting people. It's like it was in the beginning. Like, that's what it was about, And I think a lot of times when we've corporatized this and just turned it into, oh, this is just Jesus, but we don't put anything behind it, how does that make it any more special than a Walmart? Like, they're both great places, but I don't know if you see what I'm saying, but that's just really kind of, in the words of Peter Griffin, what grinds my gears about this whole situation. And I think we need to realize, especially that Christianity has grown into probably one of the most diverse religions, as far as belief. And anyone who's looking into it, I would definitely do some research before choosing a denomination, and committing to one, because on one end, like, far traditional Catholicism or things like Greek Orthodox, that's going to be crazy. Like, even like far traditional Catholicism, it was too much for me to take. I just couldn't take that. But then you have the other spectrum. That's like just going to a rock concert every month. Like, it's one of those things. And I think everyone needs to find their self on that spectrum. And I think, if anything, the thing I'm trying to say here is, if you belong to one point of Christianity, or one denomination, or whatever, faction, whatever you want to call it, don't go telling someone else theirs is wrong. You can criticize it. You can say things you don't like. Like, for example, I said throughout this video, I don't particularly enjoy the rock concert appeal, or the like more traditional gymnasium or like theater kind of thing. And I criticized it, and that's okay. I didn't say I disliked anyone who, does that form. I criticized a bit of the belief system on there from what I was, brought into, and that's just what it is, a belief system. I'm not saying one way's right, I'm not saying one way's wrong. If anything, what I want people to take away from this is that no one should be able to say indefinitely, my side is right over your side, and that is it. And if you don't like my side, then you're not getting to heaven, or whatever, in any religion too, whatever your end goal is, whatever, it's about, don't say that, in a way, I guess. And I guess that's just kind of it. That's the point I was trying to make. To everyone else, just have a great night. This has just been a rant. That's all it's been. Don't take it too seriously. Like I said, this video is not to offend anyone, but just simply to make you think a little, I guess, to make me think a little. So, we'll see y'all next time. I know this is something different. If you like it, please tell me. If, you think this whole thing is just, a bunch of bullshit, please also tell me. So, that's up to you. I'll leave it to you. Have a great night.